Hey guys, it's Evan with Soundwarp Studios, and to answer the question that no one is asking, yes, I am not on video today. I didn't feel like putting my ugly mug up on a camera today, so we're just going to see a lot more of the plugin that you, quite frankly, the reason that you clicked on the video is to see the plugin. So anyways, I digress. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Slate Digital's plugin HEATwave. It's a fairly new plugin, and it does a few different things, but just reading the description from the website, HEATwave is a fast, effective, and free way to add grit and aggressiveness to almost any sound while preserving its original transients, add sizzle to drum parts without losing the snappy attacks, beef up a funk bass without softening the slap, etc., etc. And then all the magic is hidden behind the scenes, so it looks like it does some transient shaping, saturation, compression, and EQ. So it's doing a lot of different things. The way I see it, this is kind of like a sauce plugin or a sweetener plugin. You can throw it on pretty much anything and dial it in. And depending on the source, you may use more or less of it, but it's pretty much just a one knob do that thing. So let's hop over into Reaper and we'll look at a few different use cases for this plugin. The track we're going to be looking at today is my song Corona Christmas. I'll link the track down in the description below if you'd like to check it out. But here's what this song sounds like. All right, so that'll give you a decent idea. So first thing first, let's check this out on drums. We'll go ahead and start with the kick drum. We'll look at it on kick and snare. These are two drum shells that I'm very often saturating or clipping. So let's go ahead and see how HEATwave affects the signal and if we can get something better out of it. All right, so we'll solo up the kick. All right, so it's definitely adding some saturation and crunch to the sound in the mid-range. But it's also cutting some of the low end, so it's evening out the sound a little bit more and making it, a little more mid-range focused. Let's try and dial it in. All right, so it's definitely adding a little bit more attack, mid-range bite to the drums. I feel like it's cutting a little bit of the lows as well, but let's drop it in the mix and see what we think.
The face is covered.
All right, so I like what that's doing. It's definitely helping that kick drum cut through the mix a little bit better. The way I mixed it on this song, it does sound a little bit scooped and low end heavy. So I like what it's doing. Let's go ahead and try this out on the snare. All right, on snare, I didn't like driving it harder. I feel like it took way too much of the body of the snare, but a little bit of subtle blend sounds pretty nice to my ears. Let's listen to it in context.
The face is covered.
Yeah, so it gives the snare a nice crack. Again, I mix these drums pretty scooped sounding, so this really does give it a nice mid-range. I could dig it. All right, and the last thing we'll take a look at is using HEATwave on the drum bus. I went ahead and bypassed HEATwave on the individual kick and snare tracks just to see if we wanted to use it in the pure bus application. So we'll go ahead and solo the drums and start tweaking it. All right, so it's really doing a little bit too much. I feel like it's sucking a lot of the body out of the drums. One of the really cool things in Reaper is the built-in wet dry knob. So this plugin, one of the things I really wish it had was a mix knob to kind of blend it in. So we'll go ahead and dial it in, maybe around 20, but we'll check it and then dial back the mix knob and see what we think. All right, so apparently this plugin does not play too nicely with the wet dry knob, or whatever it's doing to the transient doesn't bode well for the mix knob. So we'll go ahead and just dial it in without the blend. All right, that sounds pretty good. Let's go ahead and just do a quick A/B. All right, so I like what it's doing. Again, adding a little bit of saturation and crunch, making the drums a little bit more mid-range focused. I don't know if it really sounds better or just different. So I'd say pretty decent for drums. I guess one of the things to consider, these are, already mixed drums, but I chose to go ahead and do that because I feel like I would use this plugin as a, once I've dialed in a sound pretty well, and I feel like maybe I want to push it a little bit harder, maybe with some saturation, I would just add it at the end of a chain anyway. So, in my opinion, this is a pretty accurate representation of how I would use the plugin. So drums, pretty cool. Maybe using them on some more raw sounds might be nice, but we'll go ahead and take a look at HEATwave on another source. All right, so now let's check out HEATwave on bass. So go ahead, bypass the plugin and get a feel for what the bass sounds like in solo. All right, let's go ahead and engage HEATwave. All right, again, giving a little extra crunch. I was messing there with the output gain to try and, keep it as level matched as possible so I'm not fooled too much by the increase in volume. Let's drop it in the mix and see what we think. right, so I don't like that on the bass bus. I feel like it cuts too much of the low end, but because of the way I mixed this, I have the bass split into a low and a high track. Let me show you what that sounds like. So that's just the low end. And then also a high end grit track. I'm gonna just throw HEATwave on the grit track and really amplify this, but leave the low end intact. So let's see how that sounds. All right, so it definitely changes the distortion characteristic, makes it a little bit harsher almost, but it might help it cut through in the mix. Let's go ahead and check it out. Let me move ahead to a part where the bass is a little more prominent here in the verse.
The face is covered by the mask we wear to hide. Control the spread, they say, but what do the faces say? So what will Christmas be? We gather alone. We use our mask to...
All right, yeah, so it definitely helps the bass stand out a little bit more. It changes the distortion characteristic of it a bit. So I could definitely see this usable for bass as some additional distortion and saturation. And I definitely like what it's doing. All right, so last but not least, vocals. So let's go ahead and we'll throw this at the end of our vocal chain and see what we think of it.
The Christmas lights are on tonight, but what about the light inside? Can't seem to find a reason to carry on. Corona Christmas. No, we were never meant to be alone. 6 feet apart, we're in the dark. We need a...
And in the context of the whole mix,
the Christmas lights are on tonight, but what about the light inside? Can't seem to find a reason to carry on. Corona Christmas. No, we were never meant to be alone. 6 feet apart, we're in the dark. We need a restart.
all right, so vocals might actually be my favorite application for it so far. It really makes the vocals cut through the mix a lot better. It does make it a little bit harsh, I think, to my ears, but nothing that maybe a little bit of EQ couldn't fix after the fact. But I think it's definitely worth the extra mid-range cut that we're getting from this just by throwing HEATwave on. Let's listen to that one more time.
The Christmas lights are on tonight, but what about the light inside? Can't seem to find a reason to carry on. Corona.
Yeah, definitely an improvement on the vocals. When looking at drums, bass, or vocals, I think I've enjoyed this most on the vocal track. All right, well, that was a quick look at Slate Digital's new plugin, HEATwave. I'd say overall, this plugin is a pretty cool addition to your mixing arsenal, especially because it's free. I definitely like what it did on the drums, particularly the kick. The snare, it took a lot of the body out. On the drum bus, it was okay. The bass grit was nice, and the vocals, I think, is where it really shined. Honestly, I don't think I would pay for a plugin like this. I just have, so many different saturation flavors of plugins that I already use. Whether that be FabFilter's Saturn 2 plugin, or any of Slate Digital's other virtual console collection saturation modules. And I don't know if I would reach for this one first, but if it's free, it definitely has a specific sound. I mean, it's definitely worth trying out. If you just, have a track that you want to give a little extra crunch, and maybe give it a little bit of push in the mix. It definitely does a great job of making something sound more aggressive and helping it cut. So all in all, it's free. Give it a shot. Try it out for yourself. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subs by the end of the year, so that would greatly help me on that goal. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. And until next time, have a good day.